All right. So I'm going to start off with the main issue, and the main issue that we're finding is placements aren't getting created. A lot of times placements get missed, they get forgotten about. When you have multiple people in a branch creating placements or sending people out to jobs, we tend to forget somebody, or somebody falls through the cracks. And so even though you think that you've gotten all of your placements in on Friday, whoever in that branch is in charge of doing that, there's still from time to time somebody that falls through the cracks. And while that used to not be a huge issue before, it's a really big issue with Bullhorn back office because placements don't pull over. And when the placement doesn't pull over in back office, it means the candidate can't enter their time until they've been pulled over. So it puts a delay on that. So that's the big issue that we're finding. The other issues that we're finding is that people aren't putting in the correct pay or bill rates. And then alongside of that same thing, they're not putting in the overtime pay rates or the overtime bill rates. We didn't used to have to put in the overtime pay rates. That used to be something that we could just skip and Bullhorn would do automatically for us. But when that pulls over, it doesn't pull over like it used to. So I'm going to pull up a placement here and just show you. This is going to be in New Bullhorn, and I'll show you in Old Bullhorn. I'm going to go to my handy-dandy Bruce Wayne placement because you know how much I love Bruce Wayne. I know, I'm pretty lame. So right here, the overtime pay rate defaults to 0. We need to make sure that we're putting in the overtime bill rate, or I'm sorry, overtime pay rate here, because that actually affects the overtime rules that automatically populate in Bullhorn back office. So that's why it's important to do that. Before, Bullhorn would just kind of do that on the back side and we didn't have to worry about it. And then you also need to make sure that you're calculating your overtime bill rate, which is most of the time going to be 1.5 times your bill rate here. And that's not always the case, but that's for another conversation. The other thing that you need to make sure that you're starting to do is, or that you continue to do if you're not already doing it, is verifying the job that you are looking at or that you're placing somebody on, and you're not just sticking somebody on any random job because things might have changed. So if you are going into your job and you want to put somebody on this placement or put somebody on this particular job, as soon as you go to do the placement, something might have changed. A workers' comp code might have changed. You might realize, well, you know what, we're not doing the same bill rate. But you don't always think of checking those things when you do the placement when the job's already in there because it automatically pulls over. So just verify that a little bit closer and make sure that you're paying close attention to the jobs that you're placing them on. Also making sure that it's the correct type of job. Also remember that the trade skill or the job title pulls over. So like the job title here, this is what the candidate sees when they're entering in their time. So try to get something that they know what company they're putting it in for. Then one of the things that is happening is placements are being ended before invoicing is complete. And what that does is it causes it so that invoices actually won't get pulled on that particular placement. And so we're ending up not invoicing people. So if you have an assignment that ended, wait until after Wednesday. I would even say wait until Thursday to start ending any placements, making sure that the invoicing went out. And if you are having any questions about that, like if you're unsure whether or not it's going to pull over, then double check that with Jillian or with Doug. Then the last thing that I'm going to end on really quickly here is a big thing. Actually, I'm going to jump to one other thing I completely forgot about. I'm sorry, guys. The job description, when you're filling out a job or when you're creating a job for somebody, you don't need to put in a job description unless the job is for New York. It pulls over on the invoices, And so if you put in a job description, and I'm going to pull up what I'm talking about here if I can get to it here. It's asking you now to put in a job description. If anything that you put in this box winds up on the invoice for the client, which is fine if it's a Class A driver and you said that it's a Class A driver driving a 53-foot box truck. And that's fine, that's going to pull over, that doesn't look bad, but sometimes people are putting a lot of information in there that doesn't necessarily need to be put in there. So we're just saying refrain from putting any sort of job description in this part here unless it's for a job in New York, because it is required for New York. All right, so then the last thing that I wanted to touch on are workers' comp codes. Workers' comp codes are either not getting entered or they're getting entered incorrectly. And this is a huge deal. So it's a big deal for a couple of reasons. One, it changes the cost of what we have to pay. So if we're putting in a workers' comp code and we don't need to be spending as much money on it as we are, then we're losing money. But then the other side of it is if we have a workers' comp code that is entered incorrectly and that worker gets injured, then there's a good possibility that workers' comp won't get paid, and we could get sued as a company. And so that's not something that we want, because then we would all be out of the job, and I don't want that. So if you are unsure of what workers' comp code you need to use, if you are looking at your rate calculator and you're going down the list and you're going, I just don't know. I don't know if it's a local truck driver that doesn't own their product or a local truck company that does own their product. What do I do? Is this a warehouse with hardware? Is it a warehouse miscellaneous? Because there's a lot of workers' comp codes. If you guys could see the book that maybe I'll take a picture of it and send it to you guys. Actually, I will. I'm going to make a note of that because it's a giant 3-ring binder that's probably 3 to 5 inches thick, full of workers' comp codes. And it's all sorts of different rules and regulations when it comes to workers' comp codes. So it can be very, very confusing. Please don't guess. I can't stress that enough. If you think it's one thing but you're not 100% sure, do not hesitate to call either Jillian or Doug and find out the correct code, because it could, one, save us a lot of money just by paying the fees that are associated with it, and it could save the company as a whole if somebody were to get injured and being coded under the wrong code. So that's a really big thing. So the two main points here that I need to make are making sure that the placements are in no matter what by Friday. And so we're going to try to brainstorm some ideas there. And then making sure that workers' comp codes are in correctly. Everything else is also a really big point, but these are the two things that we're finding are the biggest issues. So what I'm going to do now, I showed you guys in New Bullhorn. Let me just bounce into Old Bullhorn really fast so I can show you what I'm talking about with some of the placements and where you need to put things, which it looks very similar, so I'm sure you won't really have an issue here. Come on, boys. All right, Bruce Wayne. And same thing, you want to make sure that your overtime pay rate is in here, because if you don't put in an overtime pay rate, it won't pull over into Bullhorn back office. And it also affects the, what, does anybody know? Sounds like a trick question. If you don't put in an overtime bill rate in front office, what does that affect in back office?
The overtime pay rate.
Overtime.
40 hours. If it's going to give you guys the overtime or not.
Exactly. So it's going to affect the overtime rule. So it will automatically populate as overtime begins after 40 if there's a rate in here. But if you don't put a rate in there, it says that there's no overtime rule. So that's really important. That's one of the big reasons why it's so important to put that in there. Also making sure that your workers' comp code is correct. You put that in here this way. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand the floor over to Amber and see kind of what she does with how she keeps up with her placements and whatnot.
Hey, guys. So a couple of things. I know that, trying to keep especially on a busy week, if you have a lot of work orders coming in and you have a bunch of different people going out, and even if they're new people or old people, it's hard to keep everybody kind of straight and narrow. I have, 4 different things that I do to try and make sure I don't miss anybody. The biggest thing is that, you do your payroll on Monday and Tuesday. So Monday and Tuesday, you got to just do that. Make as many notes as you can. I have a notebook on my desk that I use, that I make notes every day as I'm taking calls or whatever, and then I go through those notes all the time, and I try to make sure by the end of Friday that those notes are all marked off as completed. That's like my first step. My second step, Kat, can you pull that up, the worker spreadsheet that I sent you?
Yes, I completely forgot about pulling that up. I'm sorry.
This is something that I created for our office. It's really completely up to you. I just emailed you an Excel document. It's not in the
Did you?
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're
No
going
worries.
to hate for my email.
But what I created is something, I'm a very visual person, so having this all out there visually helps me out a lot. If you want to steal it, I will send you a blank copy of it, or I'll even help you guys set it up for you guys to all be able to get into it on Google. I know that I use it. Brian uses it in my office. Carl has access to it too. That way we can all look at it at the same time. Hold on one second. Open Sesame.
Will this open in Sheets?
It should, yeah.
All right, good.
I copied it from Sheets, so I hope it does.
There we go.
All right, so it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I have the days up there at the top. We have little notes next to the side if they're open and available, what kind of job they're looking for, and then where they're at, where they're placed. I go and I look at this sheet 100 times a day. I know that it's an Excel spreadsheet and some people aren't good with Excel. I get that. Some people are. If you need help with it, give me a call. I will help you guys set up something that works well for you. If you guys don't want to use a Excel spreadsheet and you want to just use a Word document, share it on Google. Make sure that everybody can put in the notes. Just a simple place, for instance, place Dale Carpenter at the Whites Company, starts this day, starts at this amount. Done. That way you can go look at those notes and just double check, oh, well, wait, I don't have that person in there. I don't have this person's placement done. I don't deal with my placements at all on Wednesday. I don't look at them. I have my notes. I have them in the spreadsheet. I have a to-do list note on my desktop, on my computer, that I put all the stuff down on. I don't bother looking at it at all on Wednesdays. Thursdays I go into back office and I start taking people out that I know aren't working this week. So if I have one of the drops or whatever, and I also do the ad drops if you see on Sunday. I try to do the ad drops just to kind of help out since we're supposed to have those done as well. It's just a lot of checks and balances, and if you guys need any kind of help or anything like that, please just let me know, and we'll brainstorm and find out something to help out your office directly. I'm always up for new ideas because I still miss them too. I don't really know. I mean, is there anything does anybody have any ideas or maybe something that you guys do in your office that would help you guys out? Anybody?
I work with, this is Carl. I work with Amber, and this spreadsheet is one of the most useful tools that we have because we've got it broke down by laborers, by drivers, by warehouse people. So we know what we have available. We can look at it at a quick glance and be able to go, we got 3 guys here that we can send out that we've worked before. We know where such and such is going to be on any day, as long as we've got it on here. and it's an easy way for us to keep track of everything. And just to reiterate what Amber is saying.
Yeah. And then as far as the placements into back office and the regular Bullhorn, like I said, I don't do anything until Thursday. I start going through there and trying to weed it out. I try to make sure that the only placements that are active are people that are actually working. I don't want to deal with any extras that are sitting in there. That way I can very quickly, at a quick glance, look at it and go, oh, well, I don't have a time card for this person. They must have worked because they're in there, and then go through it and try to figure out where their time cards are and everything like that, because I know I still have a lot of issues with getting people to put their time cards in. Fridays I go in and I double check this spreadsheet that is pulled up right now. I go through and I make sure that the time cards match the spreadsheet. If I have somebody working at the lights company on the spreadsheet, I should have a placement. Spreadsheets are not everybody's thing. They are so my thing. I'm very, very dependent on the spreadsheet. I don't know if this thing ever gets deleted. I might cry. I'm not kidding. I thought it deleted one day. I had a mental breakdown, not going to lie. But this is what helps me. And so like I said, if anybody needs one of these or needs something like this, let me know. I'll help you set it up. And then get it set so that everybody in your office can fill out the same thing. Because especially if there's more than one person in the office setting somebody out to a job, I have days where I set somebody out to a job, Brian will set a couple people out to a job, and then come Friday, I'm like, wait a minute, who is this person, and why do they have, why were they at the Whites Company or Excel or wherever they were at that day? So then I have to go and make a placement. So it's just kind of a checks and balances.
One of the big things that I used to find when I was working in the Durham branch, Rick and I would touch base with each other at the end of every day. Even if it was just 5 minutes, if he was out of the office, he would call me and say, okay, I spoke to this person and I set them out on the job, or whatever the case is. We would check in with each other at the end of every day so we knew what each other was doing. I used to keep track of all of my placements on sticky notes and on my board. I had a whiteboard and I had a whole list of sticky notes. I would try to get them in Bullhorn as soon as possible, but everybody knows that that's not possible. You get crazy. You think, oh, as soon as I place somebody, I'm going to put them I'm going to put them in Bullhorn. I know that that's not feasible. You don't always have time. The phone rings the second you send somebody out to a job, so I'm not asking for that. But the big thing is making sure that they are done on Friday at the absolute latest, because it's really, really difficult when come Tuesday even, when we're having to backtrack on some of these placements.
Are there any questions on the spreadsheet, or does anybody need any help with making one? Or I know I'm kind of the spreadsheet queen, so.
Anybody? Okay, Baltimore, what are you guys doing now?
I have my notepad and I go day by day, and if we put somebody on a job on that particular day, I mark it, and we go by the end of the week. I just put in a note here to end place if we have any placements that are ended, to do them on Thursday, so that was helpful. And it's not, we're going to get crazy busy and we're getting there, but right now I think it's still, manageable.
Well, I think, Kat, what's going on here is I don't understand this placements being approved, not pulling through the Bullhorn back office. I think that's where we're getting hung up.
Like, I'm looking at my back office right now, I'm looking at my placements, and there's only one that's pending, but it was a mistake I need to delete. Other than that, I don't have any pendings. So okay. I don't know what that,
not what Amy said.
What that email from Amy, when she did that, if it was early this morning. I did it this morning. So
okay, and that's possible that the report was pulled this morning, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not approved in back office. I think the report that she sent out was the new placements for the week, so for you to check them and make sure that that was all of the placements that you should have.
Yeah, that's correct. It is. I just went in and looked at what it's showing right now in placements, and Kat explained to me that's just the new. So I'm just really wanting to give folks a heads up that this is what we're showing in the system. And if there's something that you think should be showing, then at least you've got an opportunity to take care of it beforehand. So that's literally all that is just really an FYI and to remain proactive in this process.
Well, I don't want this to be anymore, so I just want to make sure that we are on top of this. Now, would this cause somebody not to get, or to get a paper check on Friday if they're not pulled through and pull one back office?
No, the paper checks are affected by Fleet and not sending the paperwork to Fleet by Thursday.
What about no check?
No check is them not being put into, they weren't put in the back office and the payroll wasn't processed.
Okay, good.
And I did learn, which you taught me, Kat, was if when we enter people, we don't get their email address, they will not pull over regardless of whether, So she taught me this week, or last week, is that every single person has to have an email address or else it will not pull over. And so you had reminded me that what I do in the front, I got to do in the back. And then, now I'm like a police officer. I'm making sure that anything in that pending area, it's got to be cleared and done, or else, I now learn that they won't, they'll go missed.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right. So I want to jump in and talk about one of the things that we're doing in Indy. We've been doing it for probably better part of a year and a half. We run 2 boards on Drive, so everybody has access. Tommy created these so that we can see where drivers are, see where laborers are, have a way to quickly visualize who's where, who's doing what, who's available. We use it as a backup to make sure all the placements are done. It's something that's reviewed on Friday to go back and look at everybody and go, yes, they have a placement where they're supposed to be. We like it being on Drive because it's available to everybody, and we run it for a quarter at a time, so that you've also got kind of an instantaneous history on the guys that are active with you. We're getting close to the end of the quarter. I see that Kat pulled that up. The red lines all the way across, somebody that was with me at the beginning of the quarter isn't active right now, so that I have a visual right now that Paul Scott, Jaspreet Warrior are both available drivers not out under dispatch. James Taylor is available, William Hughes is available. It's very visual. There's a dividing line, top part CDLA, bottom part CDLB. When we go to the new quarter, then all those people that have red lines across, they'll automatically come off when we do the next quarter, and I'll paste in the names. I'll take those guys out, and we just start over documentation for what will be the third quarter.
Awesome. And this works for you guys. You guys don't have very many people that fall through the cracks with your placement.
We typically do not have missed placements. I had some craziness this week. We had some missed hours,
Right.
but they were stuff that were not turned into us. A lot of times this sheet actually helps us catch missed hours, and because we'll go back, especially with the drivers who are kind of on the open dispatch. Like James Taylor, I had him documented working Tuesday and Wednesday at M&M. When I get the pay sheets from M&M, if I only see a pay sheet for Wednesday, I automatically call them up and go, hey, you didn't send me a sheet for Tuesday. In addition to these spreadsheets that are on Drive, we keep a folder of the work order verifications for the week, so that one of the things we do on Friday is go through the work order verifications, and somebody needs to have initialed off on that work order that the placement is done.
I like that.
If there's a job that needs to be created, that generally comes to me to create the job so the placement can be done.
I think that's a great idea. Well, because then you're making sure that the work order verification is being done. A, that's awesome. And then two, it's one other checks and balance. So you're making sure that I like that one a lot.
Yeah, and I actually got this is Amber again. I actually got the idea for doing an Excel spreadsheet from the Indianapolis office. That's why I decided to try and do it. And it's almost the exact same thing. Mine looks a little bit different, and I've also, set it up so that I have a driver tab, I have a construction tab, whatever. This is just a copy or a picture of the construction tab that I have. But it's exactly the same thing. It's just a check and balance. You look on here, you look, okay, well, this guy was out there for 5 days, but he only had 20 hours. What happened? It's a check. Bill's absolutely right. It's a check and balance, guys. And like I said, I'll help anybody, any of the offices, if you want something like this, if you want to change it up a little bit, if you want it to look like Bill's, if you want it to look like mine, I will help you set one up.
I think both of these are really great tools, and it's going to be kind of what you can decide in your office. But even something as simple as just a shared document that has a list of names on it for when you place them, where you place them, that's something that as the branch is going to be beneficial, because as our branches grow, as our company grows, it's going to be a lot harder to keep track of this when multiple people are doing the same thing. So you have to continue to work as a team and make sure that everybody's on the same page. You don't want to put a placement in twice. Well, you also don't want to miss a placement. Anybody else have any ideas or anything that works really well for them?
What was the question? We had excess noise here.
I just said if I was asking if anybody else had any ideas or anything that works really well for them in their office. I feel like Hartford at one point had a spiral notebook. I don't remember if it was Hartford or if it was somebody else, but they would literally use a spiral notebook, and it was at the front of their office, and they would flip pages every day. They would turn the page, or every week they would turn the page, and it just had the date, the name, and the company that they sent them to.
We do still do something similar. We have a clipboard now.
Okay.
That we just keep between myself and Carmen. So every time one of us makes a placement, we put the candidate name, where they're going, what they're doing, start date, end date, and then usually Thursday, if not Friday, I will go through and put in all the placements. We put people whether they're new or returning, so we can always double check for their end.
That's great. And it's something simple, but it works for you guys. And I think that's the big thing is I don't care if you want to go super complicated with it or if you want to keep it just easy and it's a dry erase board, but as long as it works, it's really the outcomes that we're looking for. It's not how you get there, it's that it gets done and correctly. All right, guys. Well, if nobody has anything else that they'd like to add, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the meeting. You guys know where to find me if you have any questions. Please don't forget that if you have any questions on workers' comp codes, so go ahead and ask Jillian or Doug and make sure that you're putting in the correct workers' comp code and not guessing. And then also making sure that you're putting in your overtime pay rates and overtime bill rates and making sure that your pay rates and bill rates are correct before you do the placement. All right? Thanks, everybody, for joining the call. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Kat. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.